Hello and welcome to the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything that gets you from here to there. I'm the traffic anchor and the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber. If you would like to contact me, you sure can. Any of the contact links any of my contact links, all of my contact links are in the description of this program. I recently received a question to the Driving You Crazy mailbag, and it's from Rob in Aurora, who writes, when the new LED traffic lights first came out, they work great except in snowstorms. The LED lights don't produce enough heat to melt the snow. Has that problem been solved? The answer to that question is quite interesting, and has made this a perfect opportunity to invite this person who solved the problem onto the show. Coloradan and transportation signal engineer Chris Bichon pondered that exact traffic signal in the snow problem and came up with a contraption that would keep snow from building up on the signal light. To talk more about this contraption, how it works, how he came up with the idea, is Chris Bichon. Chris, thanks so much for being here on the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me and really appreciate your time and getting an interview. So this is great.
Before we get into the contraption that you created, I want to know more about your background. And as I said, you were, a transportation signal engineer, right? What exactly does that mean? And how did you come across that line of work?
Well, in all fairness, I'm actually not an engineer, but I am an electrician by trade. And I've been involved in the signal world for quite a while, almost 18, 20 years now. And I've seen some stuff come along, and we've tried different things to address the issue with the snow plugging up in the stoplights. But it's been an ongoing problem, of course, like since the 90s, I think, when the LEDs did come out, and we started working on it. And it's almost probably been 10 years ago that I started this process. What
made you want to get into the business that you're in now before, doing the electrical stuff? What made you want to do that?
Well, it was really out of pure desperation. It was crazy to sit there on the side of the intersection and watch these cars hurtle into each other. So I was like, there's got to be a better way.
Well, before that, when you were just thinking about careers, before you even thought about the snow issue, what made you want to go into electrical stuff?
It was a steady job. It was a good job. It's interesting. Yeah. I find the traffic signal a very interesting career. It's been fun. There's big amount of opportunities, all kinds of different things coming up.
When you did get started, were you working with LED lights, or were you pre-LEDs where you were starting with the incandescent bulbs at that time? Sure.
Mostly we were LEDs by that time, because I started early in the traffic industry in like 2006. So there was a few incandescent lamps still available, still out there, but we were transitioning them all out to the LEDs at that time.
My guest is Chris Bichon. He is the owner and inventor of the Snowproof Signals. You can find them at snowproofsignals.com. So how did this idea come about? You said a bit earlier that you were sitting there at a traffic light or at a snowstorm, and how did that idea come to your head? All of a sudden, pow! How did that idea, that light bulb burst over top of your head?
Yeah, it wasn't quite like that, but it was. It happened. I was just sitting there thinking, this has got to work some other way. There's got to be, and I started thinking about, why does snow plug up in a stoplight, and how does that work, and what is the process of the snow getting plugged up in there, and why does it happen? It's a simple question. It's a simple answer, but it's a first world problem. It's something that it's hard to come up with a good solution that doesn't create another problem.
And then what was that aha moment, that moment where you're looking at it going, I just figured it out. I just had the brilliant idea, boom, that I can fix this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I came up with a prototype one day, and it was snowing pretty hard, and I put it in the back of my truck, and I put in a regular signal in the back of my truck. I bought two of the competing signal heads, and my design was a very simple, just simple put together design. And it was a proof of concept at that point. And I was like, this seems to be working pretty well. So every time I would get a snowstorm, I would drive on the highway out in front of my house here and a snowstorm and try to get it to plug up, or, and results from that. So, you only might get 4 or 5 snowstorms a year that plug up the stoplight. And then when it snowed, the way I was doing my testing, I could test 20, 30 times a year and really narrow it down to what I needed to have done.
So let's talk about the exact design. So when you were looking at a snowy traffic signal that was you couldn't see it because of the snow, you were thinking, all right, how am I going to prevent the snow from sticking? And from that point, how did you come up with the actual design of your invention?
Well, I wasn't sure exactly how it was I just let it work its way out. I would try a thing, and then if it would fail or not work. But once I designed it and understood that if I could get the wind to pass through the stoplight and continue on and not build up in the stoplight, as it has a big gap at the bottom of the visor, it allows the wind to blow through there. It has the Bernoulli principle, where it has a positive and negative air pressure inside the signal head that helps move the snow through there.
Okay, so basically for most of these people are going to be listening to this and not seeing us talk. So describe it in a term where somebody is just driving around and they would look up and go, all right, what is that thing on that traffic signal? What does it look like?
Well, quite honestly, most people won't even notice it's there. It's very very low key. It doesn't stand out or see. There's a few people that will notice, but you really aren't going to see it as a driver. You won't see the stoplight that's any different. It'll look exactly the same as it always does.
And what does it look like? So what is this feature? It's a cone, right? It's basically just a cone that sticks on top of the light.
Yeah, it's a cone. Exactly right. It's a cone that goes over the LED existing light, and kind of an aerodynamic design, and it allows the snow to maneuver around it, kind of like an airplane wing is a good example of that. And then at the back, it has a vent around the back that allows the snow to pass through and the wind to keep going, so it doesn't plug up with snow so fast.
All right. So what material did you use? Because you have to have something that's clear. You can't have something that's solid. So you couldn't have made it out of metal. So you're going to have to make it out of plexiglass or real glass, right?
Yep. And this was the one we have now. We've come a long way. So in the very, very beginning, I had like almost like a soda bottle cone shape, and we worked through that. And once I had that basic concept built, then we moved into a vacuum mold, which is a lesser expensive process to get started. And then once you get through that, then we were making a little bit of money, not a lot in the beginning. It was almost a break-even deal. And then we were able to save enough money to get an injection mold. Once we got the injection mold, then we were in a lot better place, and we used our acrylic to produce the lens that really doesn't have any. It's just like water. It's completely clear. You can't see any difference with it.
This is really fascinating. My guest is Chris Bichon. He is the inventor of the snowproof signal. You can get them. You can find out all about it on their website at snowproofsignal.com. So are there materials that you tested that you thought worked better than others? Are there other ways to make that clear material maybe better or less expensive?
Well, the material isn't really my background. There's material engineers that figure all that stuff out. All that stuff is already available. I just had to get it from basically, the bead form into the injection mold to make the lens. So it's all been tested. We've run 10-year tests, or they have. I haven't. They've run 10-year tests on the material. It lasts for a very long time. It's better than the car headlights. It's different material. It just lasts for a very long time.
When you first created it, and you first tested it, because I think any new inventor is going to go, all right, I have this brilliant idea, but now I have to figure out if it actually works. So
Yeah.
how did you test it? You mentioned briefly a little bit ago about part of it. So take me through that process of getting a traffic signal and then putting your invention on it and then blowing snow at it.
Right. So the question I had to myself is, how do I make this traffic signal fly? If you had to make it aerodynamic, how would you do that? And I did different tests, but the big one was being able to put it in the back of a pickup truck and drive 35 miles an hour down the road and
while it's snowing, right?
While it's snowing, I had an inverter in the truck to run the light so I could see exactly what's going on. And I could test my theory and get a proof of concept out of it that way.
And that's pretty interesting, because the wind, the aerodynamics, though, coming off the back of the pickup truck, I think would change it a little bit. But obviously, it was good enough for you to figure out, hey, this is actually going to work. Did you do some tweaking after the first or second try?
Yeah, the first try, I made more of like a wing visor, and it worked quite well, but it was so big and bulky, I ended up having to adjust it and go back to the drawing board on a couple occasions and have it re-engineered basically and start over. There's a lot of failures and a lot of progress, but ultimately I was very lucky. I had a lot of good things going my way, and once I knew I had something, that was all I needed. Once I could prove the concept, I knew I knew there was a demand for it. I knew we could make this process happen down the road. I didn't know how long it would take. I didn't know where we were going to go with it in the end, but I knew we could make something happen. Yeah.
How many of those first prototypes did you have to go through to finally get to the point where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can remember I bought 12 from a vacuum mold, and that was I was just like, oh my gosh, we've come so far now. We've actually got 12 of these. We can actually put in the field up, to get something from your mind on a piece of paper, build it, get it built, and get it out into the field, into the real world, and have other people try it is a huge, huge process. A lot of energy, a lot of hard times, hard second guessing yourself, trying different avenues. But once we got those down, man, it was a real relief to get those first dozen out there or whatever, and get people to put them on, and then just hear the feedback from them. We had a huge positive feedback, and people were asking more and more about them. Yeah.
My guest is Chris Bichon. He is the owner and inventor of Snowproof Signals, talking about his invention that keeps snow off of LED traffic signals. So were you able to then go to, you live in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, a place that obviously gets a lot of snow.
Yeah.
Did you go to the city? Did you go to the county, Garfield County? Did you go to the state and ask, hey, I have this great invention that's going to keep snow off of our traffic signals, and I'd like to try it out?
Well, that's a tough deal, because it was really hard to get a hold of people in government agencies. Even though I know how that works, it's still hard to do that. So a lot of the relationships to get those people on the phone and get them to try it was through distribution companies that are already selling signal parts. That was the way I had to go, and they dealt with them. And I don't even know exactly who all buys them at this point. I just know that they sell them for me, and they talk to them. I did do some cold calling, try to make other ends meet with other people, but that was just really tough. And a lot of people don't want to. It's just a tough design to get into the field with, being that it's all connected with government agencies.
What was that initial conversation like when you had to call the distribution company that you said that you gave that allowed then the invention to go to the different municipalities? What was that conversation like when you tried to convince them? Guess what I just created?
Well, there's a lot of people, and they would want to try it, and some of them I gave away for free, and just tried to get them up, and they would try them, and we had a great sales team in the beginning, and we got people to get a few of them up, and when they tried them, they're like, wow, this kind of works, and we're going to keep going with it. But yeah, that first hump, getting over that first design process, and then getting them to be someone to buy them is a big step. Been successful with it. We're been trying different ways to market it, but it's really comes down to the distribution companies that are so involved with these agencies, and that's how it kind of goes.
So do you know if they're in place there in Glenwood Springs? I mean, have you
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've gone to the first time it went up. Did you go over to that traffic signal and go, look, that is mine, and I
Yeah.
I did that?
We sure did, and it took my family. It was kind of a cool moment. We would go and look at them and say, that's where we're going, and it was a really cool thing. Yeah, the city has been embraced it, and they're using them, and some of the state highways around here are embracing them. And CDOT's been great. They've taken a hold of them, and they keep buying more, and we're moving forward with them, and we've come a long ways, and it's been a big journey, and it's super exciting to drive down the road and look up and say, hey, that's what we did. Yeah.
So how much do they cost to send to these to the municipalities that are using it? So how much are they paying for your invention?
They're around $200 per LED. I'm not a big company. I'm sure that there's some other processes that would be way less expensive, but I can't do it for much more or less than that. It's just kind of where it sets. So they're about $200 to put on each of the signal heads, but the cost savings per one rec is pretty insignificant for the cost.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's what they talk about, safety all the time. But are you worried then because of the cost, and maybe we've heard about other companies coming in? As soon as somebody invents something cool, somebody tries to figure out a way to make it cheaper. Are you concerned about that?
Sure. I mean, that's always the concern, right? Whenever you have a design, I have got it patented through the United States government, so it's patented, so it is protected in that sense. There's other competing designs that are similar to ours, but nothing works quite that well. So we're pretty confident and pretty secure with what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, my guest is Chris Bichon. He is the inventor of the snowproof signals. You can read all about it and see more about it at snowproofsignal.com. What has the reaction been, or have you heard from folks in the traffic signal world that has sent messages to you from, the places where we see a lot of snow and saying, man, this thing is awesome?
Yeah, we had hardcore people that were, naysayers about it. They called me back and say, man, this thing really works. We're really happy with it. We want to get some more. That's kind of been the overall theme, and they keep putting them up, and they keep putting more people out of harm's way. It's a great feeling for me. It makes me feel proud and keep people out of accidents. It's a good idea.
Have you heard about maybe the prevention of some crashes in intersections because of your invention?
I haven't necessarily. It's kind of like trying to prove a negative. It's pretty tough,
right?
It does happen, I'm sure, and I know when some of the traffic signals are plugged up and there's wrecks adjacent to the intersection that we have ours on, and the other ones doesn't. I'm sure that there's something to be said about that, but we don't hear a whole lot about that side of it.
Can you use them for more than just a traffic signal? For instance, let's say on railroads, they have signals similar to this. And I know on waterways that I've been on, they have signals similar to this.
Yep. And, I've contacted some of the railroad companies and people that do the maintenance for it, but it hasn't really come up, but it would be definitely applicable to that same system and the waterways, and possibly even some of the airports that use the highway, the lights for that stuff, for the airports and stuff. But yeah, there's a huge amount of application for it. There's really no limit to what we can do with it. the design of it is pretty well on course for what it can do. Yeah.
And probably not just on the train tracks, along the train tracks, but maybe even on the train, because I think they have lights that are very similar in design and style.
Yeah, they do. And and that was the big thing with me, is I knew what I was getting into with this, because I do know traffic lights. When you start changing into trains or something, I don't exactly know how that works. I don't work on them. I don't know. You're opening up a whole nother bag of worms to get into, and I don't know the systems, like what they do exactly. But yeah, I mean, the design wouldn't change that much between traffic lights for what we're using them for on the highways, to say the trains or the boats or any of that stuff.
I wonder if it would work for, let's say, just a regular passenger car to create a similar headlight cover to your design that might keep some of the snow off. But then again, when it's wet and slushy snow that coats your car anyway, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, they've some people have asked me about that, and I'm sure that would work. I just haven't I got my hands full. So I'm sure that wouldn't be a far leap to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of places in the world that probably could use the same thing. Have you sold to any cities or countries around the world?
Yeah, we have a few up in Canada, up in Ontario, and we're also patented up there. We've got a business or a distribution company up there that does sell them, and we're working more and more up there. It's a slower process, I think, up there, but yeah, we are up in Canada. That's about it. Pretty much United States and Canada.
Being in Glenwood Springs, yeah, you're going to have some fluctuations in the temperatures, let's say into the 20s or the teens. Sometimes you get a little bit colder than that. Obviously, you can get different levels of snow, but in other parts of the world, in Finland or in Upper Canada, that sort of thing, you can get some super cold weather like we've seen already this winter, and some pretty heavy snow like we've also seen this winter. So has it been tested in extreme conditions where the winds are blowing 90 and the snow is coming down, where you get 70 inches in a couple of days?
Not that I know of. I know we had some stuff even on the Front Range there for a while. It was around 100 miles an hour they clocked it one year. That it really, really was windy, and it actually did pretty good. We still had more than 50% of the light showing. You still definitely see it as a driver. Where was it? We had it was the 2019 when that bomb cyclone hit. And we had just gotten our first batch out really about that time. And it did, we had some pretty windy stuff, I think 70, 80 mile an hour. We haven't got into the minus 40s or 70 degrees or anything like that, but I don't know why it would change a whole lot, but yeah, it hasn't. I don't have any data on that.
Yeah, interesting. So my guest is Chris Bichon. He's the inventor of the Snowproof Signal, and you can see him at snowproofsignals.com. Where does Snowproof Signals go from here? What is the future? Is it just continuing to grow? Is it continuing to tweak the design, or where are you going from here?
Yes, we have our design pretty well dialed in. We're pretty happy with it. There may be some things in the future we might, change a few things, but we have the regular snow cone, and then we also have one that you have signals that are askew or very low angles of approach, and they use a louver device in there, and that way the lane sitting right next to the other car wouldn't see it. It's called a programmable head. It's traffic stuff. A lot of people don't know a lot about that, but this snow cone actually retrofits over that as well. And that's the only one that I know that's able to take care of the LEDs with a louver device. So it's kind of a new design. We're just getting started on it. We're getting the patent finished up on it. And and who knows? I don't know where we're going with it. We're just along for the ride at this point.
That's awesome. And it works for just whether it's an arrow signal or a regular just on signal or any of them. It just pops on there and works.
Yeah, it takes about 5 minutes to put them on. Yep, it's pretty simple. Use existing. We reuse a lot of the parts, so it's just a great. Retrofits greatly and just right back on there, and we're good to go.
So is this your main business now? Are you still doing other signal work, or are you doing a little bit of both?
Yeah, I'm doing some other signal work, but this is probably my main income for my family now. But yeah, it's been an adventure, very exciting. I can imagine where this might go, and I'm looking forward to it, and hope to keep going with it. Yeah.
How would you think you would do if you went to the Sharks at Shark Tank and walked into that room and?
It's funny. Everybody asks me that and talks about that. And I don't know. I don't really know exactly how that works, because usually it's a startup, and I've really come through that part of it, borrowing money from my 401k and things like that to get this started. So we're kind of past that part, but there's always the exposure, and marketing is always the issue. So yeah, anything that we can do to open up more avenues of exposure is great. Yeah.
I would be surprised if Mark Cuban or any of those guys were able to have connections into the traffic signal world.
Well, if you know anybody, send them my way. I'd be happy to talk to them.
That's right. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris, this has been a fascinating conversation with you. So, hey, thanks so much for joining me. Chris Bichon, he's the inventor of snow-proof signals. Thanks for all you do, and thanks for your invention.
Thank you, Jason. Have a good day.
Again, his website is snowproofsignals.com. And then you could see some of the test videos that Chris did, and get some more information if you are interested. If you're listening and you're part of a DOT somewhere and you have signal lights that you want to keep snow-free and they're LED powered, then or lit, then yeah, go ahead and contact Chris at snowproofsignals.com. I love stories like this where somebody just came up with an idea, thought about how he could solve a problem, figured it out, tested it, saw that it works, and then brought it to market. And he's being successful at it. So I love stories like that. It's really nice to see, especially if it's a local guy here from Colorado, at least for me, being in Colorado. So I thought that was pretty darn cool. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or other cool ideas you would like to share here on the program, you always can contact me on any of the contact links in the description of this show. And if you wouldn't mind rating the show, I sure would appreciate it as well. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'm Jason Luber, the traffic guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.